There ain't no reason to be defensive about the defense. Yeah, unless you're Joe Barry. Today we're talking who's in, who's out for the 2023 defense. I have a feeling Joe Barry's name is going to come up. Stick around to find out. Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I am your host, John Del Rey. You know, on Monday we talked about who's coming, who's going, looking ahead to the future, deciding who is going to be on the offense in 2023 versus who is not. Today, we're looking at the defense. Same thing, same deal. I got a couple players that I'm telling you are going to be back, and a couple players that I'm telling you I don't see a path forward for them on this roster next year. Now, join me on Friday as I do a game preview for the Los Angeles Rams. That's bringing things back to this year. But during the bye week, it's a good time for not only self-reflection, but it's a good time to look ahead, because you know Brian Gutekunst is doing that. So, let's dive into the players. I've got 3 that I think for sure are coming back, 3 that I think for sure are going to be heading out, 1 person who's just something's got to change, and then I got 1 major question mark as well. So, let's start off with the guys who I don't think are coming back. Now, these are not absolute ironclad guarantees. Come on, I'm just reading tea leaves. I'm trying to get a guess as to how they have performed this year, what their contract looks like, whether they're free agent or not, what's in it for the Packers to retain them. And player number 1 who I don't think is coming back would be 3-4 defensive end Jarran Reed. Now, Jarran Reed, by all accounts, has had an average season. He's had some nice games. He's had some below average games. But he has not necessarily been the help that Kenny has needed that we've known about all along. We know, and we've been talking about it on this pod for the last few weeks, that Kenny Clark has been playing more nose tackle this year than he has at a higher rate since years ago, earlier in his career. When he's seen the most success, probably playing 3-4 end in this system, as we saw more last year. And we thought the addition of Jarran Reed, we thought the development of TJ Slaton would allow Kenny Clark to slide out more. And it turns out it's been just the opposite. So I'm not sure, even if Jarran Reed has performed at an adequate level, that he's been exactly what they've been looking for. Pair that with the fact that he's a free agent after this year, and he's already got dead money on the cap for next year because of a void year that they added on. And I'm just not seeing a path for Jarran Reed to return to this roster. I think next year is the year of actually getting Slaton more playing time, as well as Devonte Wyatt. He'll be in year 2 as a first-round pick. Time to get that guy on the field. Number 2 player not coming back. Fan favorite, fan despised, Dean Lowry. Yeah, I know, I'm picking 2 from the exact same position. But really, looking across this entire roster, there's a few spots that could probably use dramatic overhauls. I talked on Monday about how tight end is realistically one of them. I think we know now safety could be another little bit of foreshadowing. And I think, too, defensive line is still in that same boat. Corners, linebackers, they're all good to go for the foreseeable future even. Even every spot on the offense, pretty decent to go for the foreseeable future. But these are the 3 spots that I think need to be blown up, and Dean Lowry, no exception. He's 28 years old. Just last week, they restructured his contract, kicking more money into the future. He now has 3 years worth of dead money. It's not a high total, but 3 years worth that we're still going to be paying Dean Lowry on the cap. He now is 28 years old. His contract just got restructured again. You know, I do have to tell you, on Twitter, Ken Ingalls, the Packer cap guru who doesn't work for the team, but the one who knows by far the most who doesn't work for the team, he said he had a random thought earlier that, is it maybe that they were restructuring Dean Lowry's contract to somehow give him an extension? To move the money around to keep him in tow? And I gotta say, as soon as he tweeted that, I think there could be some legitimacy to it. I think it's possible. We know that the Packers have very, very few 3-4 ends left on the team. Once, if Reed departs, Lowry's due to be free agent. They've got Wyatt. but there's precious few guys left at that position. So is it completely out of the realm of possibility that they give an extension to Dean Lowry and work with this 3 years worth of dead money? No, it's not. But nonetheless, Dean Lowry has not performed this year at the level he did last year. And oftentimes, why Kenny Clark isn't able to slide over to end is because they keep on giving snaps to Dean Lowry. So, as far as I'm concerned, 28 years old, we've run this experiment to the end. He can be a serviceable player, but to look at him in a defense that you want to elevate to the next level, can you bank on him to be that guy anymore? Maybe if you're deep into the offseason and you got nobody else, sure. But is he one that you want to bank on from day one of the offseason to be a starter for you in your 3-4 defense? Probably not. I would go with the youth instead. So Dean Lowry, not coming back. Last one, and I don't need to talk a ton about this one. I think a lot of people are on the same page. Safety, Adrian Amos. Adrian Amos, for his first stint in Green Bay, multiple years worth, the first 3 quarters of his contract, he was unbelievably steady. He was that guy, Mr. Dependable, not to miss a beat, to do his job in full. But this year, boy, that has fallen apart. He looks slower, he looks more hesitant. And we know that there's been mass miscommunication issues in the secondary, right? But nonetheless, I don't know. Something seems off with Adrian Amos. And I think it's time. You've had Rudy Ford develop, who I'm going to get to in a minute. You still have Darnell Savage, who you're on the hook for in contract-wise, who I'm going to get to in a minute. I think it's time. And if coming into this year, I would have said Adrian Amos might be a prime extension candidate. He's earned it. He's still on the good side of 30, but not anymore. No, his play has not dictated as such this year, and I think we are witnessing Adrian Amos's final games, I should say, as a Green Bay Packer. Now, I'm going to get to that one guy that I think something has to change before I get to the keeps. And that happens to be Adrian Amos's counterpart, Darnell Savage. Darnell Savage, we know that they exercised his 5th-year option. That's going to pay him $7.9 million next year. $7.9 million next year. Whew, for a guy in the last couple of weeks who you kind of demoted from being a starting safety, then you put him to nickel, but then you gave Keyshawn Nixon nickel snaps over him. So, what is Darnell Savage? Is he your dime back? Are you paying $7.9 million to a former first-round pick who's going to be your dime back? Year 2 of his career was his most successful year, happened to be year 2 under Mike Pettin. Does Darnell Savage just need a different change? Does he need a different coordinator? Does he need a different scheme? What is it that has led Darnell Savage down the Clinton Dix train? But nonetheless, he is physically very gifted. He does make splash plays occasionally, but there are still fundamental flaws in his game that have never been repaired now through 4 professional seasons. So, you're on the hook for $7.9 million. I don't know as if an extension is going to come to drop that number. I don't know if they're just going to say, yeah, we guessed this one wrong, $7.9 million, we got to keep him around, it's guaranteed. Or do they try to trade him? See, my gut tells me because the coaching staff loves him. They love his traits. They have been vocal about that for years now. To me, Darnell Savage stays on this roster, but they find a new spot for him. And I don't know exactly what that looks like. That will probably depend heavily on who the coordinator is, be it Joe Barry or someone different. But something to justify that salary, some kind of change is coming for Darnell Savage. Moving on to the keeps. One, of course he's a keep, but I'm just going to say it, Rashan Gary. Of course he's a keep. Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying here is not only do they keep him, I'm saying he's also heading into his 5th-year option. I'm saying Rashan Gary gets himself a contract extension this offseason. Again, to refer to Ken Ingalls on Twitter, he said that Rashan Gary, a hypothetical contract in his head, would pay Rashan Gary an average value of about $22 million, placing him as the 3rd highest edge in the NFL, right around there with Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns. To me, that seems quite reasonable. And I know he's coming off of an ACL injury, but throughout the course of his entire career, you've had no reason to doubt Mr. Gary coming off of injuries. So, I still think I don't think the ACL injury is enough of a deterrent to turn the Packers off from getting that contract extension done. I think they back up the Brinks truck. I think they pay Rashan. I think he gets an extension done. And we're going to see him in a Green Bay Packer uniform for a very long time. Now, I have seen some conjecture because of Kingsley Enagbari's development, because of Rashan's impending return. What do you do with Preston Smith? He has a big cap number. Do we just let him go? To me, the answer is no. You're keeping Preston Smith for at least one more year. When they had Rashan Gary drafted, the plan was for at least 2 years to be Rashan to be a 3-person rotation with Za'Darius and Preston at outside linebacker. Well, now you've got Kingsley Enagbari, who's coming along quickly as an outside linebacker, rookie this year, making a number of great plays. But again, I think the plan has to be part of a 3-man rotation. Well, who's man 3? It's got to be Preston. Now, if you decide to dump Preston this offseason, you're going to pay him, you have $9 million in dead money. Yes, there is some savings that can come, but still $9 million in dead money. And then what are you going to do about your edge position when you're leaving yourself with the Rashan Gary, who may not be back until midseason, and Kingsley Enagbari? You going to devote your first-round pick there? Maybe. But even then, are you going to rely on a first-round pick and second-year Kingsley Enagbari to be your starting edge for the beginning part of the year until Rashan's good to go? To me, looking over Preston Smith's contract, it looked always like it was a minimum of 2 years, then we'll see. Well, we've only lived through year 1. I think he's coming back next year. Next up, 2 free agents, and yeah, I'm going to lump them together because the things that I have to say about both of them are very, very true and very similar for both. Keisean Nixon and Rudy Ford. I think both of them have played well enough to make sure that they have a role carved out in the future of the Green Bay Packers, both on special teams and defensively. Rudy Ford could very well be one of your starting safeties next year. Keisean Nixon could very well be your nickel corner. I think it's entirely possible that both of them are going to be semi-starters next year, while Rudy Ford is one of your best special teamers and Keisean Nixon is your kick returner. I think both of them, unless they've priced themselves out of what Green Bay can pay, which I don't think they have because they're more valuable to Green Bay than most other places, I think both of them get new contracts and return to the Green Bay Packers. Now, last one, and here is the massive question mark that could completely tank all of this, that could completely throw it out the window, that could make it all right. Who the hell knows? Joe Barry. Yeah, your defensive coordinator. And his entire staff, Jerry Montgomery, Jerry Gray, all of the other assistants that we've gotten used to for years. If the Packers decide to completely clean house on the defensive side of the ball, saying, look, we had the talent, we had the investment, we've gone through multiple coordinators with the same assistants, it is time, wipe it clean. That's possible, but I'm going to caution you. I think a lot of people online just assume that Joe Barry is gone at the end of this year. But here's the truth. A lot of Joe Barry's numbers, such as DVOA, are not that far off from where Mike Pettine's were. And you're saying, yeah, but Mike Pettine got fired, so of course Joe Barry's going to get fired. See, but I have one key difference, and you can call me a mind reader, you can say I'm speculating. All right, go for it. But you could see the frustration at the end of the Mike Pettine tenure. Keep in mind, Matt LaFleur did not pick Mike Pettine. And you could see towards the end of the Pettine tenure the frustration from LaFleur. The frustration about guys playing far off the line, which, yeah, Joe Barry's still doing. I don't understand how Matt LaFleur's okay with that, but whatever. Side note. But you could see it. You could hear it in press conferences that LaFleur was frustrated with the direction of the defense. This year, he's come to bat for Joe Barry a lot, blaming it on players more than Joe Barry. Any time that the media has wanted to make a big deal about LaFleur having to tell Barry at halftime to make adjustments, both Barry and LaFleur downplay it. Whereas LaFleur is not showing the same frustration that I believe that he did show with Pettine towards the end. So while to many it's a foregone conclusion that Joe Barry will be fired, the defensive staff will be cleaned, I don't know as if it's that certain as many Packer fans are making it out to be. I think it's what they want, and I don't blame them for wanting it. But there may be more to this than we think. Now, if Joe Barry is fired, which again is entirely possible, might be likely yet, but if Joe Barry is fired and the defensive staff is completely cleaned house, who they bring in, be it Vic Fangio, be it Jim Leonard, the darling of Wisconsinites' eyes, be it Brian Flores, be it any other big name or little name that we've never heard of, whoever it is, could completely change the fate of the defense. Could you imagine a defensive coordinator coming in tomorrow and saying, all right, we're going to go back to 4-3, get ready, y'all. 4-3 defense being 4 defensive linemen down 3 linebackers as opposed to the flip, which the Packers currently run in 3-4. And you really could argue that the Packers mostly play a standard nickel, as do most teams in the NFL. But nonetheless, defensive coordinator, a different coordinator, changes the game here. I don't see that same chance on offense. I didn't talk about that on Monday because even if Adam Stenavich is gone, Matt LaFleur is still running the show. It's still his philosophy, still his guy, still the same everything. Philosophically, schematically. But defensively, you bring in a new guy, all bets are off. And that is the one question that needs to be answered before we can say absolutely conclusively about any one of these guys. Nonetheless, I feel pretty confident in my picks. How about you? Thanks for joining me today. I will be back on Friday with the game preview for Green Bay Packers versus Los Angeles Rams. I'm also going to give you an update on Friday about all of the signings this weekend. I will be at some of them, but holy buckets, there's quite a lot of signings this weekend, so I will again give you that rundown on Friday. I hope you had a wonderful day today. I hope you have a wonderful day tomorrow. I will see you on Friday. And as always, thanks for checking out this video. Hit like, share, subscribe, and go Pack Go.